If you had told me a year ago that my family would betray me, I would have thought you were crazy. My father had always been strict but fair, and my stepmother, Margaret, while sometimes distant, was never cruel. However, everything changed with the arrival of my half-sister, Leah. She not only told lies but also destroyed everything I had worked for, my relationships, my reputation, my life. Leah came into my life when I was 10, the year my father remarried. Born a few years later, she knew how to get what she wanted from the moment she could talk. Margaret spoiled her, and my father indulged her. Leah was the princess of the family, the golden child who could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, was the independent one, left to fend for myself. At first, I didn't mind. I wasn't close to my stepmother or Leah, but I assumed that was normal. I was a teenager navigating high school, and Leah was still in elementary school. We didn't have much in common. But as time went on, I started to notice subtle things: Leah's talent for playing the victim, how she twisted situations to make herself look innocent, and how easily she manipulated Margaret and my father. It started with small things. Leah would make comments like, "Emma's been coming home really late lately," or "I'm worried about Emma. She seems so distracted." At first, my father and Margaret didn't seem concerned. I was 24, living on my own, and figuring out life after college. I didn't have a curfew, and I didn't need to answer to anyone. But Leah kept planting seeds of doubt, and I didn't realize how deeply her lies were taking root. The turning point came one Friday night. My father called me, his voice strained. "Emma, we need to talk," he said. "Can you come over?" I assumed it was something minor, maybe a family issue they needed my advice on. I never expected to walk into an ambush. When I arrived, Margaret was sitting on the sofa, arms crossed, like a judge about to deliver a sentence. Leah sat beside her, looking overly innocent. My father began, "Leah has told us some disturbing things. Are you using drugs?" I blinked, making sure I had heard him correctly. "What? No, where did you hear that?" Margaret's cold gaze pierced me. Leah spoke up, "I found pills in my room the last time you stayed over." Panic washed over me. Leah had never even been in my room, at least not that I knew of. I rarely went home, and when I did, it was for short visits. I always kept my belongings packed. "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. "Leah, why would you lie?" Leah's big eyes filled with feigned concern. "I'm not lying, Emma. I'm just worried about you. You've been acting so strange lately." I didn't know how else to help. Her words made my stomach churn. I turned to my father, pleading, "You know me. I've never touched drugs." But before he could respond, Margaret interjected, "It's not just the pills. Leah also mentioned you've been associating with questionable people. Emma, are you prostituting yourself?" The room started to spin, and my legs felt weak. I managed to stammer, "How could you even think that? Leah's lying." But my protests fell on deaf ears. My father rubbed his temples, his face a mixture of frustration and disappointment. "Emma, we want to help you. If you're in trouble, we need to know." "I'm not in trouble," I shouted, tears streaming down my face. "Leah is making this up." Leah started to sob, crocodile tears flowing freely. "Emma, I'm just trying to help you. I don't want you to end up like some of my friends who got mixed up with the wrong crowd. I care about you." It was like watching a play, and I was the villain in a story I didn't even know I was a part of. Margaret shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. "We won't believe you until you're honest with us." I looked at my father, hoping to see a flicker of doubt, a hint of support, but all he said was, "Emma, maybe some space would be good for everyone." That was their way of telling me not to come back. I left that day feeling like a stranger in my own life. Leah's lies had taken root, and nothing I could say would uproot them. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. In the days following that disastrous confrontation, I felt like I was free falling without a parachute. I kept replaying every second in my mind, trying to figure out how things had gone so wrong. How could my father, the man who had cheered me on at soccer games and taught me how to change a tire, believe such ridiculous lies? How could Margaret, the woman who had once treated me like her own daughter, turn so cold? And Leah, how could she do this to me? The next day, I called my father, determined to make him see the truth. "Dad, you know me. You know I would never do the things Leah is accusing me of." My voice was choked with emotion, but I pressed on. "She's lying, Dad. You have to see that." His response was like a punch to the gut. "Emma, we love you, but this isn't about Leah. This is about you. We can't help you until you admit what's really going on." "Admit what?" That my life had been turned upside down because of Leah's lies? That wasn't the kind of help I needed. That call ended like all the others, with my father insisting I seek help and hanging up before I could even defend myself. Leah wasn't finished. She made it her mission to destroy my life. She told the neighbors I was a drug dealer, and soon, people who had known me for years started looking at me differently. My boss, who had always praised my work ethic, called me into his office one morning. "Emma, I've heard some concerning things," he said, nervously fiddling with a pen. "I can't have someone with these kinds of issues representing the company." "Issues? What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice rising. He sighed. "I don't know if it's true, but the rumors are enough. We're going to have to let you go." I left the office that day clutching a box of my belongings like a lifeline. Leah's lies had taken my job, and I knew it was only the beginning. She was going to take so much more. The final blow came a week later. My father called, his voice filled with the same hollow pity that sent shivers down my spine. "Emma, we've made a decision. We can't have you around Leah anymore. She's been through enough because of your behavior. It's best if you stay away until you get yourself sorted out." "Stay away?" I repeated, my voice trembling in disbelief. "Dad, I haven't done anything. Leah is lying." "We love you, Emma," he said, his tone firm and cold. "But this is for your own good." Just like that, my own father had chosen to believe Leah's lies over me. I packed my things and moved in with my friend Jessica, who offered me her couch while I tried to figure out what to do next. But no matter how hard I tried to move on, Leah's lies clung to me like tar. Every job interview ended in rejection, friends who had once cared about me stopped answering my calls, and even strangers on the street seemed to look at me with suspicion. The walls of my world were closing in, and there was no way out. One night, I lay tossing and turning in Jessica's cramped apartment, thinking about confronting Leah. I imagined myself showing up at my father's doorstep, exposing all her manipulations, forcing her to admit the truth. But I knew how it would end. She would cry, twist the story, and somehow make it all my fault. Jessica tried to comfort me. "Maybe you should just leave," she suggested one night. "Start over somewhere new, away from all of this." It wasn't what I wanted to hear, but she was right. Leah had poisoned everything in this town, my relationships, my reputation, my future. The only way forward was to leave it all behind. So I packed the few remaining things I had and moved to another city, where no one knew me. I told myself this was my chance, to rebuild myself, to start fresh. At first, things seemed to be going well. My coworkers were friendly, and my boss appreciated my work. However, I couldn't fully relax. I would occasionally find myself looking over my shoulder, half expecting Leah's lies to follow me. It was irrational, I knew, but the paranoia had taken root. What if someone from my past stumbled upon my new life and started talking about Leah? Jessica, bless her heart, remained my lifeline. "You need to stop looking back," she said during one of our weekly calls. "That's your family, Emma. Maybe they've realized by now what Leah did." I wanted to believe that, but every time I pictured the way my father had looked at me that day, like I was a stranger, or worse, a liar, I couldn't bring myself to reach out. If they wanted to apologize, they knew how to find me. Despite the scars, I managed to carve out a life for myself. I made new friends, threw myself into my work, and even started dating. One of those dates turned into something more. Noah was everything I didn't realize I needed: stable, kind, and patient. He didn't pry when I was silent about my family, and he didn't push when I'd go quiet during certain conversations. Instead, he allowed me to exist in a peaceful space free from judgment. A year later, Noah proposed. It wasn't a grand, over-the-top gesture. We were sitting on my couch, eating takeout and watching a terrible movie, when he turned to me, ring in hand, and asked me if I would spend forever with him. Tears streamed down my face. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a future to look forward to, one separate from the chaos of my past. We planned a small wedding, just close friends and his family. My life was finally my own, and I wasn't going to let anything ruin it. But of course, the past doesn't always stay buried. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was sitting at my computer, finalizing the last details, when a notification popped up. It was an email, and the subject line stopped me cold: "I'm so sorry." Just the subject line was enough to shake me. It was from my father, a name I hadn't allowed myself to think about in over a year. My first instinct was to delete it, to protect myself from reopening wounds I had worked so hard to heal. But curiosity won. I took a deep breath and clicked on it. "Emma," it began, "I think about you every day. I know we made a terrible mistake, believing Leah over you, and words can't express how sorry I am. I am so deeply sorry for everything that happened. I had imagined this apology so many times over the years, but seeing the words in front of me felt surreal. He went on to explain how Leah's lies had unraveled over time. Apparently, she hadn't stopped with me. Her manipulations had continued, affecting friends, coworkers, even Margaret. Eventually, her web of deceit collapsed under its own weight, and the truth came spilling out. "I heard you're getting married," he wrote. "I would give anything to be there, to walk you down the aisle like I always imagined. Please, Emma, give me a chance to make this right." I stared at the screen, tears blurring my vision. This was the apology I had wanted, wasn't it? But now that it was here, it felt wrong. Where was this remorse all those years ago when I was begging them to believe me? Where was this desire to fix things when I was homeless, jobless, and trying to rebuild a life that Leah had destroyed? I closed my laptop and paced the room, emotions swirling inside me, relief, anger, confusion, all hitting me at once. Noah found me sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. "What's wrong?" he asked, his face etched with concern. "It's an email from my dad," I said simply. Noah took my phone, opened the email, and read it silently. When he finished, he set the phone down and looked at me. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me wants to give him a chance, but another part of me is still so angry. I spent so long trying to move on without him. "Do I really want to open that door again?" Noah nodded thoughtfully. "You don't have to decide right now. Take some time. Just remember, whatever you choose, it has to be for you, not for him." Over the next few days, I wrestled with my emotions. I reread the letter until the words blurred, trying to decipher what I was feeling. Did I want to forgive him? Did I even want him in my life anymore? Finally, I sat down and wrote a reply. It wasn't long, and it wasn't overly emotional, but it said what I needed to say. "Dad, thank you for your letter. I appreciate your apology, and I'm glad you realize the pain Leah's lies caused. I'm also glad to hear she is working on rebuilding her own life. That being said, I have worked hard to build a life of my own, one free from the hurt of the past. While I'm not able to forgive right now, I wish you well in your own healing process. Emma." A sense of calm washed over me as I dropped the letter in the mailbox. This wasn't about reconnecting or repairing a relationship. It was about finally releasing myself from the grip of the past. For years, I had let my father and Leah define who I was. Now, for the first time, I felt like I was living for myself. Life with Noah became my anchor. We focused on the small joys, lazy Sunday mornings with coffee, spontaneous weekend trips, and making plans for the future. We talked about starting a family someday, but for now, we were content building a home filled with love and an understanding. One day, Noah and I were going through old boxes in the attic, a task we had been putting off since we moved in. Among the dusty items, I found a stack of my childhood photo albums. I hesitated before opening them, unsure if I was ready to face those memories. Noah noticed my hesitation and sat down beside me. "Want to look at them together?" he asked gently. I nodded, and together we opened the first album. There were pictures of my father teaching me to ride a bike, photos of birthday parties with cake smeared across my face, and pictures of family vacations where we were all smiling, carefree. "Do you miss them?" Noah asked after a while. I thought about his question, tracing my finger over a picture of me and Leah as young children. "I miss the idea of them," I admitted. "I miss the version of the family I thought I had, but the reality wasn't that." "I don't miss that life," he said, squeezing my hand in understanding, no words necessary. A few weeks later, I received another letter, this time from Leah. My instinct was to throw it in the trash, but curiosity got the better of me. I carefully opened it, unsure of what I would find. Her handwriting was neat but shaky, as if she had rewritten it several times. "Emma," it read, "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. What I did to you was unforgivable, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. Therapy has forced me to confront myself, and I hate what I see. I was jealous of you, your independence, your confidence, your life outside of our family. I thought if I tore you down, I would feel better about myself, but all I did was destroy the best thing I ever had. You were a good sister, and I ruined it. I don't expect a reply, and I don't expect you to believe I've changed, but I needed you to know that I am truly sorry. Leah." I folded the letter and set it aside, unsure what to make of it. Leah's words seemed sincere, but sincerity didn't erase the hurt she had caused. Her jealousy had cost me so much, and while I didn't wish her harm, I didn't know if I was ready to offer her anything more than silence. That night, the letter lingered in my thoughts. Eventually, I decided to show it to Noah. "What do you think?" I asked after he had finished reading it. "I think she's trying," he said cautiously. "But that doesn't mean you owe her anything. You get to decide what's best for you." His words stayed with me. Forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation, and it didn't mean I had to let her back into my life. That night, I placed Leah's letter in the box with my father's. I wasn't ready to reply, but I wasn't ready to throw it away either. And just like that, life went on.